Hello and welcome back everybody to War Thunder Weekly News. This week 1.101 has come out and there's quite a lot of crazy things that are changing up the game in many ways. A lot of people seem quite disappointed with some of the things in this patch, but I gotta say I think there's some aspects of this patch that are definitely gonna change, if not now, the future of War Thunder. So be sure to hit that subscribe button. My original plans for this video were basically just to read all the patch notes, which would be insanely boring, so I think I'm going to go and point out some of the things that I think are pretty awesome about this patch, and some of the things that are a bit laughable. Starting off with what I think is the most major change that is definitely going to change a lot of combat in the future of War Thunder is the addition of the shell volume, or volumetric shells. At a base level, it doesn't seem to change a whole lot, but after playing a little while, I gotta say, there are certain tanks that are definitely changed a lot. It seems, in my opinion, that this change has heavily buffed the British. Primarily the British. I'm sure other tanks will benefit from this significantly, but I feel like it's the British who are gaining from it the most, at least at mid-high tiers. Primarily the Carnarvon. The Ascent Mark III also benefits greatly from this, but the Carnarvon, the way they designed the armor plate, it's got one in the center that's 152 or something, and then two on top and bottom that are like 100, but a slight curve, and behind that is another plate that has many gaps in it, but is 100. And what this does is basically combines multiple bits of armor in multiple areas. The end result is that it can absorb a large number of shells and is so effective that it's actually more effective to kill it by shooting the side of the turret instead of the front of the turret. People are not going to know this for a little while, so this is a prime opportunity to really grind the British out if you are at that level. Another British tank at 7.7 that seems to benefit quite a bit from this is the Conqueror. Now normally this tank has some notable weak spots of right next to the gun mantlet, the armor comes pretty flat and is able to be penetrated quite a bit. Now that the shells have a size to them, it's more likely if you're to shoot around the area that you're going to hit one of the heavily angled bits of the gun mantlet, throwing your shell off or absorbing it. And upon that, the applique armor is pretty effective against heat shells, making this a pretty good tank for 7.7. With its major weak spot being the lower front plate that you could hide behind a rock, you could definitely do some damage if you're hauled down in this thing, or at a great distance. And if only we could convince Gaijin to let us have the APDS pen over 400 millimeters, then it would be truly balanced. But really, I want to solidify the fact to you that the front of this turret is so impenetrable at certain points against APFSDS. It has over 1,000 millimeters of effective thickness and 500 to chemical. We're talking at points DM33 cannot get through the front of this turret. Now that's obviously really awkward angles, places where you want to get shot. But you have to think, this thing's 7.7, so it's going to fight a lot of early APFSDS that some only penetrates around 300, and this stuff seems to protect for most of the area around 400, making it so a lot of that early APFSDS, at the minimum distance, they can have gun barrel to metal. It wouldn't penetrate. I was in a battle earlier where a T-55 AM was shooting at me, and I was like, excuse me, I'm sorry, but were you trying to penetrate my turret? Sorry, I was having tea with the boys, and we just couldn't hear you trying to penetrate my turret over all the commotion that was going on inside. Because we're all still alive, because you didn't penetrate the turret. Now, unfortunately, he did eventually kill me with an ATGM to the front plate, because I put myself in a really awkward spot. But even then, it took him a few shots. Like, I'm not sure. I didn't play this thing a whole lot before this patch was out. I was grinding it up. I got the applique armor, as you can see, obviously. I don't remember it being this effective. I don't remember it taking this much shots. Actually, you know, hold on. I'm just gonna put this video on hold right now. Literally right now, while it's recording. I'm putting it on hold. I'm gonna go play it some more, because damn, is it fun to absorb all those shots. Like, they can't do anything. Alright, anyways, there are other nations that benefit from the shell volume. Obviously Russia. However, most tanks that benefit from this, they're large, late-tier heavy tanks that had very annoying weak spots of the turret ring. While the turret ring weak spot is gone, most of these tanks will still have a tough time as all their other weak spots are still present against the common shells they go against, which often consists of Heat FS and APFSDS. This also seems to be the case in many US tanks in the same tier area, while they do have interesting curvy overlapping armor, and in many senses these weak spots have become smaller. Most shells that they are going to go up against can still get through just as easily as they used to go through. However, there is one major change that I've noticed that seems to go through many different tanks. It typically consists of larger shells, but it seems that all shells will do this. Bouncing seems to be increased. Of course, obviously the shells now have size, so if they hit a weird angle, they're going to bounce more often, but oftentimes you can see them bounce down into the tank. I haven't done this in actual game, but in the penetration analysis, the easiest tank to do this to would probably be the IS-6, which is unfortunate because that was already a weak spot. Now it's even more of a weak spot. But really, it seems to be happening to a lot of tanks, even happened to me in a Panther. And I think this is what we can expect a lot of, really dumb shell bouncing. Now when this was first announced, a lot of people were hoping that this would lead to less stupid things happening to their Abrams and tanks like that. However, at higher battle ratings, it actually seems to have much less of an effect than it does at lower battle ratings, as APFSDS and HEAT-FS has a very small penetrating point. APFSDS, in fact, is a sub-caliber round, so it's much smaller than the cannon you shoot it out of. So the weak spots that already exist, sure, they have gotten smaller, but they are still there and still able to be penetrated. But generally overall, I think the change is a very good one. I enjoy it. It's going to have to change a little bit of gameplay, and I can see some tanks even in fact having their battle ratings changed a slight bit. So tell me in the comments what vehicles you think are most benefiting from this change. I've heard that the IS-3 now in a down tier is pretty killer, and the Jumbo is now more impervious. But let's get to the next subject. Of the vehicles that have been added, a lot of people are kind of disappointed because none of them really popped out. But I gotta tell you, there is one that is definitely a change to what you're expecting. That is the Chiha long gun. Now, I haven't played every single vehicle this patch, but I have to say the Chiha long gun is the vehicle of this patch. It's what's going to be remembered. I'd say that it is very comparable to the VFW, or more of the flak bus. It is a poorly armored, rather fast-firing derp cannon that destroys most things it goes up against at its battle rating of 2.7. You see, this thing has changed since the dev server came around. In the second dev server, they had increased the penetration a bit, and it had a shrapnel shell, but now they have given it a SAP CBC shell, has a max pen of 103 millimeters, with a velocity of 825 meters per second. Now, you probably already know this, not that interesting, 100 millimeters, that's nothing at 2.7, a lot of tanks can do that, sort of. A lot of use heat to get that penetration. But the thing is, this is a 120 millimeter shell, and that's an HE shell. Sure, they call it SAP or whatever, but it's a semi-armor piercing, meaning that most of the shell is HE, it just has a base fuse. Leading to, if you penetrate something, more likely than not, you're gonna one-shot it. And on top of that, for a 120 at 2.7, it has quite a good reload. Currently mine, thanks to my crew being mostly spaded, is 10.7, though I think stock it's 13. However, I think one of the best aspects of this tank is that it's on the Chiha chassis, which is a medium tank chassis, which leads it to not having hull break, which means that they can shoot HE at you all you want. You're gonna kill like 2 of the crew member, but luckily you got 2 more brave samurai in the back. Now, it's not all rainbows and sunshine. There are some major downsides to this tank. For example, the entire top is open, so most likely when you play this tank, you will either get like 2 or 3 kills, and then an airplane will strafe you and you will die, or before you get to the battle, you will be killed by artillery, because the ammo box is made of structural steel, and it is about 4 millimeters, so 2 millimeters of effective thickness, which artillery seems to go through quite easily, and ammo racks you. However, if you're able to luckily avoid all of that, you could find yourself with a good number of kills. In fact, my first game, I found myself in that situation, where I had a great view of many tanks not looking at me, and the planes in the sky were very little. Unfortunately, however, I had only loaded the regular HE, not the SAP shells. I was still able to get 2 kills thanks to hull breaking, as it is a 120 millimeter HE shell that pens about 25 millimeters, but I was unable to kill most other armored tanks. Now, the last other obvious detail is the sparrows that have been added to the game, and honestly, they're a bit of a mixed bag. And I mean that in more of a literal sense. They kind of randomly work or don't work. When they do work, it looks really cool, and I have gotten some good kills with them. However, just like in the dev server, they still seem to randomly not track and then explode about 3 seconds later. Now, historically, I've heard that they had about a 15% hit rate, and I guess you could say that that's just being carried out in game. However, Sidewinders also had a 15% hit rate, but in game, they often track and hit. So it does not seem to be intended, it seems to be a bug, at least that's what I would assume. Maybe Gaijin does have this as an intention because they don't want the missile to completely destroy the game, as people feared it might when it was first proposed. Another bug involving the sparrows is not actually because of the way the sparrows work, it's actually because of the way the weapon selection system works, the one I told you about in my prior video. If you set the controls up just right, you can make it so you fire all of one set of air-to-air missiles at once. So you could fire 4 missiles at somebody at one time. If you would like to see this in action, there should be a link in the corner of the video. Now that's just all the news I feel about adding into this video. I should come out with a few other things, maybe smaller details in the patch that I did not cover here in further videos. Before I end this, first I'd like to thank my amazing, awesome people that are helping the universe as we speak. It is the VIP champions of the YouTube membership and patrons. So starting with the patrons, first I'd like to thank Tex, Edward, and Asuka Bliet Idinahui. Thank you very much, guys. And a special shout out to Tex for donating $10 a month. For YouTube members, the $1 members are Casper the Great, Bouncy Seal, Cupcake Jesus, T for Tom, Luce, Mako, and Raymond Saints. Thank you very much, guys. For $5 a month, we have Laizusu Hudai, GG Ultra Blue, I like them thick, Matthew Cameron, Lars Henrik, Pedor Koglinski, Nico Korkamaki, Mehmet Hazarji, Tex, Roger Rammer, Grimace, Mighty Peppers, Pointless Gunsnakes, and Waffly Joker 6. And another special shout out to my $10 YouTube member, Job Lopsky. Thank you very much, guys. Keep dominating the world, even if the only thing you feel like you're dominating is some heroes. But anyway, if you've enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the like button. If you didn't like the video, don't hit the like button. If you want to see more, hit the subscribe button. I make War Thunder Week news videos every Friday. This one's a little bit late because I was on an adventure during the week. I like to stream on Saturdays, and I upload other videos really whenever throughout the week. So be sure to hit the bell icon to be notified anytime I upload anything. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a fantastic day. And in terms of bonus news, did you know that there's a War Thunder VTuber?